Hello, everyone. My name is Grace Benton, and today I'll be presenting my progress report for my final informational report titled The Impact of Consumer Disconnect from the Agriculture Industry. My research focuses on why many consumers in the United States misunderstand agriculture and how this disconnect developed and what the consequences are for the trust purchasing decisions and policy. In this presentation, I'll walk through the work I've completed so far, what I've learned, and what remains to be done before finishing my final report. Let's get into it. The purpose of my final report is to clearly explain the growing disconnect between consumers and the agriculture industry and how this affects the industry negatively. Even though everyone interacts with agriculture every day, research consistently shows that most consumers do not understand how modern agriculture works. My goal is not to persuade readers, but to provide accurate information that helps adults better understand food systems and the factors that shapes their perceptions. To talk about my audience, it is going to be the general adult consumer who may not have much agricultural background or understand where that food is coming from when they're picking it up in the grocery store, and they do not have accurate information about how the food is produced. To go into my methods section, it relies entirely on secondary research. As I'm doing an informational report, I reviewed over 10 scholarly incredible resources, trying to get information from peer-reviewed journals, USDA reports, and national surveys. I looked for information on ag literacy, consumers, how they form perceptions about food, communication strategies to help rebuild trust. I identified common themes and built my findings section off of my report from this, which we're going to get into next. Before we get into that findings, my background section of my report focuses on the disconnect that exists in the first place. Only about 2% of the population feeds America today, so all the other 98% really see agriculture firsthand. Urbanization has removed most people from rural settings, and technology advances have made agriculture far more complex than consumers realize. As a result, people often rely on secondhand information, including social media, documentaries, and news stories, which may oversimplify or distort farming practices. And farming happens in these rural areas that don't have internet or often cell phone service, so they aren't even, when it comes to like even social media, it's only been till recently, like since COVID, that you start even seeing anything a lot on agriculture put out on social media. One of the strongest findings across the research is that consumers lack foundational agricultural knowledge. Many adults cannot accurately explain how crops are grown, how livestock works, or how food travels through the supply chain. Instead, people often depend on non-slogans or outdated images of farming that do not match modern agriculture systems. This creates confusion, unrealistic expectations, and misunderstandings from what farmers actually do. One of my other major findings was based on technology and complexity, is that agriculture has become significantly scientific, increasingly more scientific, and technology advanced just as everything else has advanced. So is agriculture. Precision agriculture uses drones, sensors, GPS, data analysis. Everything's very electronic, and it's really amazing to see how we've innovated agriculture. We have improved crop through biotechnology, automation through our tractors and combines. We are transforming livestock and crop systems. Most consumers never see these technologies, and this gap is in understanding contributes to the confusion and skepticism, which is what I focus on this section. Misinformation in this section for findings, I think, is one of the biggest ones and rely most heavily. And you can also see there at the bottom, I include one of my figures that I will have in my report, and it shows that research emotionally charged topics spread quickly online than factual explanation. Topics like GMOs, pesticides, animal welfare are especially vulnerable to misinformation, are also where we see the most misinformation, which is what that figure proves with GMOs. When they don't have the background knowledge, they let these posts of misinformation fill the knowledge gap. And over time shapes beliefs, and it's now become a generational beliefs and information that they think is factual. Next finding section, I talk about trust, and that people tend to trust individual farmers but distrust agriculture companies, even though they can often not distinguish between the two because they don't understand or see what's happening. They think that they're hiding things, and transparency and communication are essential for rebuilding that trust, is what I get into in this section. Okay, to get into my discussion section, I explain why the findings matters. Consumers want food that is safe, ethically produced, and environmentally responsible. But because they have limited exposure to agriculture, they rely heavily on media and portrayers. Farmers, on the other hand, often use technical language or assume consumers already know as basic farming concepts. This creates communication gap where both sides misunderstand each other. As a result, consumers may distrust production methods simply because they don't understand them. And I go into this a lot in my discussion and how this fact drives a lot of this. Now that we have gone over the bulk of my report, I have finished pretty much everything in my report. It's all done. The references, I know what figures I'm going to use, my title page, the memo, all of that's done. I just need to re-go over the edits on the peer review, and I need to beef it up a little bit. I need to do about 1,000 more words, especially I need to go back through and add, now that I have my main ideas sorted, and add to what I have said in my ideas in those findings and in the discussion especially. And then that's all that's left, so hopefully not too much more work. In conclusion, and to wrap it up, I'll talk about a little bit about my conclusion, and I just kind of wrap it all up by continuing the disconnect between consumers and agriculture, and the has significant impacts on trust and decision making and public policy, and also hurts agriculture and hurts the consumer when shopping in the grocery store. Thank you for listening and getting the update on my report. Thank you.